All right, Aaron. Why are there two different genealogies for Jesus?
Oh, yes. So one in the book of Matthew is intentional about putting 3 pairs of 16 generations, in the sense that it shows that the Babylonian exile ends with Jesus. And in Luke, it traces the genealogy not just back to Abraham, but all the way back to Adam, who is the son of God, to show that Jesus is the second Adam. So the first genealogy points that Jesus is the one that ends the exile, out of the exile of our sin, and he's being shown as the greater Moses who leads us out of the slavery of our sin. And then in Luke, it shows us that Jesus is the greater second Adam. That just as the first son of God, Adam, failed in the garden and failed with temptation, the second son of God, the second Adam, which is the true son of God, doesn't fail when he undergoes temptation.
So you said 16, it's 14, but I only know that because I turned to it to look for it. So it's 14 generations.
That's correct.
So one of the things that we notice in genealogies is that they are almost always selective in Scripture. And like when we go back to a genealogy, we often are looking for sort of a family tree that's like an unbroken chain, but in the Bible, that's not how genealogies work. For example, sometimes a genealogy is given to show somebody's inclusion in a tribe or a clan that they weren't a part of by biology, by nature, but instead that they were essentially adopted. Like Samuel, for example, his sons are counted as Levites, even though Samuel himself was not born into a Levitical family. And so there's genealogy to demonstrate like that his children were legitimized as Levitical children who had the right to serve in the temple, as a way to honor what the Lord had done by giving Samuel as a child to Hannah. And then in Matthew's genealogy, where we have these 14 generations, like you said, like there's a symmetry there. So you see that this is by nature, number one, selective, and number two, symmetrical, showing that the works of God are continuing to occur in time with it says, so all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Christ, 14 generations.
Yes.
The other thing is, if you notice, you have in the one in Matthew, you have this calling out of these specific people for their notability.
Yes.
So people like Rahab and Ruth and that sort of thing. Whereas in Luke's gospel, you have people who are called out not for their notability, but for their obscurity. So Luke's genealogy also, which is something we'd expect, because if you would look for the most notable people in a genealogy, like to note in your genealogy, and then somebody else chooses deliberately not to pick the most notable people for their genealogy, chances are good you'd see some very significant differences. So,
what do you make of the first two sections, 14 generations? When you count, why are there 13 generations before you get to verse 17?
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for that, but often you have counting inclusively, where you count both the first one and the last one in the Hebrew method of accounting for time and things like that. So I imagine it's probably something like that.
Well, I think the 14th generation is Christ.
Oh.
So that solves that problem for me.
Yeah, that's a better answer than mine.
And a few theologians, looking at the numerical counting system, as you have said, there was a system called gematria. So in Hebrew and in Greek, there would be different letters assigned according to the alphabet and what they were. And 42, if you look at gematria, means son of David.
Oh, okay. So 14, 14, and 14. That's pretty cool.
Oh!